Today we're going to learn how to use there was and there were in English. These forms are used to talk about things in the past, especially to say that something existed or was in a place before now. They are the past forms of there is and there are. Let's start with the positive form. We use there was with singular nouns and there were with plural nouns. For example, there was an apple on the table, there was a hospital on Main Street, there was a doctor in the room. Here we are talking about one thing. For plural nouns, we say there were apples on the table, there were restaurants in the city centre, there were people in the hospital. So remember, was the singular, were all plural. Now let's look at negative sentences. We use there wasn't and there weren't to say that something did not exist or was not in a place. For example, there wasn't an apple on the table, there wasn't a bank on Main Street. There weren't any apples on the table, there weren't any hospitals in this town. Notice that we often use any with plural nouns in negative sentences. There weren't any people, there weren't any restaurants. In spoken English, we usually use contractions because they are shorter and more natural. For example, there was not, there wasn't, there were not, there weren't. For instance, there wasn't a hospital near my house, there weren't any shops open yesterday. These forms are very common in everyday conversation. Now let's learn how to make questions. To form a question, we change the order and put the verb before there. So we say, was there and were there. For example, was there an apple on the table? Was there a hospital on Main Street? Were there any apples on the table? Were there any restaurants in the city centre? This structure helps us ask about things in the past. We can also give short answers to these questions. For example, was there an apple on the table? Yes, there was. No, there wasn't. And for plural, were there any apples? Yes, there were. No, there weren't. These answers are very useful in conversations. Let's look at some examples in context. Yesterday, there was a doctor in the hospital, but there wasn't a nurse. There were some people in the waiting room, but there weren't any children. Was there a problem? Yes, there was. Were there many patients? No, there weren't. These sentences help us describe situations in the past. We can also use this structure when talking about the body or health. For example, yesterday there was a pain in my arm, there was a cut on his hand, there were marks on her face. Or, was there a problem with your leg? Yes, there was. Were there injuries on his body? No, there weren't. This helps us describe past situations related to health and the body. To summarize, we use there was and there were to talk about things that existed in the past. We use there was for singular nouns and there were for plural nouns. In negative sentences, we use there wasn't and there weren't, and in questions we say was there and were there. Learning this structure will help you describe places, situations, and events in the past clearly and easily.